My name is Joseph D. Feaster Jr. As I always tell one, I'm a New Yorker, born in the Bronx, raised in Queens, worked in Brooklyn, partied in Manhattan. I've been practicing law for the past 50 years in various places in government, private firm. So I've been around, having fun, enjoying life, and um, wanting to talk about and support the Samaritans. And that's what I'm here to do today. I have two children. I speak with Joseph in the present tense, not in the past tense. If you see anything, my biograph will say married to Phyllis, two children, Alana, Joseph, deceased, and my grandson Jaden. My son, Joseph DuPont Feaster III, was 27 years old when he passed in August 3rd, 2010. But he was a great young man, a great son. He was the only grandson that my parents had. There were one sister had three girls, other sisters had two girls. I had a girl first, and he was born, so he was like a king amongst us. So he was always a good kid, but some of that did change personality-wise as this mental illness began to take. He became less and less that cheerful type of person, but he still was focused on what he had to do. He was an excellent student. I think that's another thing, that a lot of people who suffer from mental illness are very, very intelligent as well. He and his sister both matriculated through the Newton school system under the Metco program. We lived in Boston, and they were in the Metco program. And he played lacrosse there, he played football there. And then he went off to, he always said he wanted to do film. He learned about a film program at the university in terms of Pitt, University of Pitt. Well, what happened is while he was there, when he returned after his first year that summer, got a message from the school that they wanted extra amount of money for cleaning his room. And I said, okay, maybe he was a little bit untidy. He wasn't going to get away with that while he was home, but maybe while it's away he did. But then what became apparent as that summer progressed is that the first indications of some semblance of mental illness distress. Definitely there was the pain and there was the loss, but my personality is such that I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of what's right in front of me. So while I'm dealing with the loss, contacting family, friends, and a lot of people who were very, very supportive. So that's the history of Joseph III. And for that, trying to make sure that his legacy continues on. We have what's here, the Team Feaster supporting Samaritans in so many different ways, involved with the Mass Association of Mental Health, William James College, which trained people, and created the Feaster Family Foundation because I wanted to make sure that be able to help, particularly caregivers. I'm not a clinician, so I can only speak to the persons who are survivors of the person who may have death by suicide. It's not going to change things. It's not going to go away. It's not going to bring that child back. And there's going to be constant reminders. And as I tell them, hey, cry as much as you want to. So my initial reaction for me was, yes, is the grief and the loss. My other one is, and I believe this in almost every respect, that when one transitions, they go into a better place. The one question I had to ask my pastor was, would my son go to heaven? Because I grew up as a Catholic, and in Catholicism, it is a whole different viewpoint that if you don't get your last rites, you have to go in purgatory to the end of the world. But in the Christian faith, once Jesus gave his son for all of us, that's the price that was paid for us, for our forgiveness. And my pastor said, because he was ill, yes, so my son is in heaven. And that was important to me. The church body can be totally supportive as to whatever the person might need, and helping them to get through, because there is the pre-part, there is the day of the homegoing, and then it's the time after that. That's where some people need the most support, is after, because there's this big swell of program, and then it isn't. Every person's experience with their funeral director, with their church, is going to be different. But I think that to the extent that they can find a way to wrap themselves in support around the individual who is going through this, I think the better. I spoke at his funeral. A lot of people, because of their grief, etc., they just can't even imagine that one would be able to do it. My essence of my talk was that, hey, I'm speaking about him because I knew him best. And that was the theme of my remarks, that, and knowing how I would have probably written these things, I probably took the first letters of his name and picked out stories or comments related to Joseph, using the letters of his first name. Well, that for me is, maybe that's my coping mechanism to do that. And then the next thing was to get engaged and involved with organizations that could help other caregivers, as Samaritan does, as the Mass Association of Mental Health does, as NAMI does. I don't focus on his passing. I focus on the life he lived. I see it manifested in my grandson, Jaden, who is now 15 years old, going to the 10th grade. And I tell him all the time, you act just like your uncle. And I can see many of the traits that are in my grandson that I saw in Joseph. So all of my thoughts about Joseph are positive. He made a contribution to the family, to society, while he was here. So I think that, again, I would encourage one to lift up the person who experienced death by suicide and look to the positive things that they brought to your life and dwell upon those. The tears come because that's just natural. If you loved and missed someone, there's going to be pain sometime in trying to even recall and speak about what they have done, no matter how positive it is. But that's just human nature. And so, yeah, let the tears come, but try to manifest the positiveness that the person brought to your life and to the community in which they lived. But what I wanted to do was to have the legacy for Joseph, was to have people, if they wanted to show some support, to support an organization. And what happened through the Mass Association of Mental Health, we raised about $6,000, which was contributed to or donated, to the Linderman Center, which is a state-run facility for persons who were afflicted with, mental illness, and they try to assist them. And that started my trajectory of getting involved in organizations dealing with mental health and suicide. We're now 15 years out, and I'm still involved in what I call my ministry. And my ministry is to address this. So, That's how I coped with it. What I have found is there is less of a stigma. Contrary to the way I have approached the issue of mental illness and what has occurred with Joseph's loss, the loss of Joseph, is I've been public about it all. I feel no sense of shame. I had nothing, I could not have prevented it. I didn't cause it. I don't know if it was genetic or not, whether it was environmental, but all I know that it occurred. And in our society, folks can deal with folks who have cancer, they can deal with folks who have kidney disease, they can deal with folks who have heart trouble, but you talk to them about the brain and mental illness, and folks seem to think that the brain is not an organ in the body. So what I see is there seems to be a little bit more receptivity to one addressing the issue of mental illness. So we have a ways to go, and that's the reason why this is my ministry, and I am going to be constantly raising it. I've been down to speaking at the State House here in Boston, supporting when Samaritans and NAMI and others are there, speaking nationally, doing programs like we're talking about here. So I will stay in the fight because the fight isn't over. Even within my own situation, no one else in my family will talk about this issue. You would never get my daughter or my wife, Phyllis. My daughter would not do this. Is she articulate enough to do it? Educational enough to do it? Absolutely. But this isn't something that she can do. She and her brother, even though they were 5 years apart, extremely close. Well, his birthday is June 29th. It's on the calendar. I will acknowledge it. When I'm downtown, I will stop. There's a church right in downtown Boston, right by Macy's. And I would go in and light a candle. That would be it. I acknowledge in my mind and in my heart his birthday. I don't forget June 29th every year. Each and every year I mark his, since I speak of him in the active sense, in the present, that he's getting older each and every year. No parent feels that they should bury their child. We feel the right order is that our children outlive us and bury us. So the fact that he died at a young and tender age of 27 years old, yeah, there's unfinished business. There's unfinished business for him, but in the same token, I always remark that there's all different boulevards in heaven. There's the gold boulevard, the silver boulevard, the bronze boulevard. He's on one of those boulevards doing his thing. And so I think if you want to use my track metaphors, because I ran relays when I ran track, he's passed the baton on to me. He said, "Dad, you continue to finish what I may have left unfinished." And that's what I feel that I'm doing, that he's passed that on to me and his sister, and now my grandson, for us to finish this in his name. So that's where I think, we're carrying on. And so it's not unfinished, it's just, to be continued.